This is Frankie with the Uncensored Report. Now, this one might be a little lengthy. I'm going to try to whiz through it as fast as I can, but I'm really concerned about government surveillance. I'm concerned that a lot of individuals are just watching major media and what they're spitting out, and they're not focused on what's going on here. From Vault 7 to the latest information that came out with the Dagger program. So I'm going to cover all that, and I'm going to try to. Here's the issue. You had Comey sitting before the Congress today, and they basically would say, did the president order the surveillance of Trump? Of course the president didn't. Just like Nixon didn't order the things he did. Other sources do. Foreign governments are allowed to spy on us. They're allowed to share that information with the president. The president's team can go out and say, okay, yeah, we think Roger Stone is of interest, knowing that he talks to Trump on a regular basis. And next thing you know, they're surveilling him. All these major left-leaning Times, the Post, the New York Times Post, Washington Post, put out articles about the surveillance, that they were getting information from a surveillance. Yet they're saying, oh, no, we're not doing it. Once Trump called them on it, they are walking away from it. But it's ridiculous the way this is being played, and they're trying to play on the ignorance of the American people. WikiLeaks came out. They exposed how the CIA is out there, how it's a bloated bureaucracy, how they've lost control of their cyber program. They revealed great details about the global covert hacking system that they have. The effort by the CIA to go out there and effectively weaponize the exploits that they were doing out there, to exploit the phones, the iPhone, the Android, the Samsung TVs, Microsoft Windows. And then they'll turn around and joke, oh, you think your microwave spying on you, with Kellyanne. The most troubling of these revelations is the control of the majority of hacking arsenal out there. They've lost it. They've lost control of the malware, the Trojans, the viruses, the malware remote control systems, all that stuff. And no matter how detached we are from politics, we have to focus on this, because their power is getting greater because we're not awake to restrict it. A lot of times it's for your safety, and they throw that card out there constantly, and I just go like this every time. Once our government has total control over basic aspects of life, they don't know any boundaries. And not necessarily all the politicians, although they're in there. I fear the bureaucrats the most. The censorship that's going on out there. Think about it. Who knows what? How long has this been going on? Who's accountable for those actions? And there's a lack of personal responsibility out there. And when you get this, and it meets the needs of this monopolistic state, the individuals, we lose our sovereignty out there. The sovereignty that we've had over our own life. Those government bureaucrats are making them thirsty for more and more power, that power they're gaining through this stuff. You know, and there were a couple articles. Now, James Corsi, Dr. James Corsi, world-renowned author, one of the best investigative reporters out there, was with WND. A lot of people will say, oh, he's with Infowars now. That's besides the point. Like I said yesterday, it's not the magazine, it's how thorough they're doing, and is the information accurate. And they can put out a ton of links, and I tell you what, I'd rather go to a place like Infowars than NBC, because they will document it. They will put the factual stuff out there. James Corsi wrote an article covering how the CIA, he just dropped this today, not the CIA, the NSA. First he did one how they were spying on outfits like Infowars and Donald Trump out there. Law enforcement sources came out. They were in regards to the spying by the NSA, and it's been going on between 2004 2010. And they have a database out there. And in that database, they were able to pull private numbers, 3 private numbers for Obama. I put this article out Sunday. Private numbers, private addresses, private information that is not public out there. And by that, people would look at it and collaborate. Yeah, that's his information. How are they getting this? And it's through this electronic surveillance. And this guy, Mike Zullo, has been working it. And it all came up because of Sheriff Apollo's case, which I'm going to cover in a second, because this is another thing that just came out. So apparently the NSA went out there, and in an illegal, unconstitutional electronic surveillance, they're calling it Project Dragnet. Google it. A lot of major media hasn't touched it today because they don't know how to handle it. And it goes against their narrative that they've been pushing. It goes against the agenda that they've been pushing, the propaganda they've been pushing. And what this does is it revealed what we essentially read in news reports going back to 2005. Information that Edward Snowden pushed out in 2013. That NSA is out there with this Project Dragnet electronic surveillance on U.S. citizens illegally, unconstitutionally. So you got Apollo out there and this chief investigator, Zullo. They identified dozens of entries of various addresses of Trump towers in New York City, of Mar-a-Lago, all which go back to 2004. And yes, it wasn't Obama. It was that idiot Bush. And I'm an independent. I call it the way I see it. Trump, I don't like a lot of stuff Trump's done. I don't like what Trump's doing with the nuclear arsenal, increasing it. I don't like a lot of stuff he's doing. I'm not a fan of what he did over with the DAPL thing. But I call it the way I see it. And you can see, I'm looking at the article now, all the different information that was on there. That was not public. You know, and there's efforts out there to deny any domestic surveillance. That you looked at different things and they documented. New York Times in 2014 showed the CIA was spying on the Senate panel investigation agency. And they were totally, you remember how Feinstein got upset about that. In 2016, The Guardian, they came out with the headliner, the constitutional crisis, the CIA turns on the Senate. And that's, again, talks about their surveillance of the Senate. And with this Dragnet database, it's not only Trump himself that's being surveyed, it was a ton of his employees. And they go in there, Patricia Hernandez, Michael Van Der Geis. There's like 10 people on this list. Greg Bradley. And what it did is this Project Dragnet suggested that Trump was under surveillance only for his phone conversations. But it wasn't only for that. It was for his financial information, his banking account transactions, his credit card transactions, his tax filings. This is before he decided to run for president. And this Project Dragnet, here's the kicker, federal and state law enforcement have access to it. The parallel construction there. This database indicates that the NSA was out there conducting this surveillance. Like I said, 2004 to 2010. You can find that report on the uncensoredreport.com. I say go there because if you go to my Facebook, I put a lot of fluff in there, which everybody likes. I put the real hard news that I think is imperative on my website. Now, today they came out, and this is key, folks. There's the documentation. Dr. Corsi took the documentation, put it right there on the website. It's irrefutable. You can't deny it, okay? Basically, they went in. The Department of Justice has been trying to prosecute Sheriff Arpaio from 2008 to 2010. And during that time, they conducted these NSA electronic surveillances. And they did it of various Arizona judges on the case. And while the DOJ attorneys for Eric Holder maintained an ongoing telephone back channel discussion with the judges that were assigned to the case. So you had Operation Dragnet. You had this whistleblower come on. He made public the federal hearing. Yes, there was a federal hearing. Key, federal hearing that disseminated the timeline that this took place. And it's all right there. I'm looking at it now, 4 pages. It's a 4-page document. And if you compare this to the FBI Director Comey, what he was saying there, that there's no information to support wiretaps on Trump that he said in his tweets, then why is all the news saying we got all this? Everything I said in the beginning. Something's wrong here, folks. And I think that what they're hoping is that people like this ex-CIA guy Clapper and Comey, that you'll believe them because they're the FBI, because they're the CIA, because they're the NSA. And I tell you this, how about the one time Clapper was sitting there like this when they were talking about targeting Americans? He said, I don't believe so, not intentionally. The guy's a known liar. So the NSA's electronic surveillance, the DOJ judge tampering in the civil rights case. They brought this case against Arpaio in 2008. It's involving some arrest of some guy, Manuel de Jesus Ortega Melendres. Okay? They intervened in Apollo's case. They communicated with the judges and various national law firms involved in the case, which suggested that judge tampering aimed at Sheriff Apollo's conviction was taking place in conjunction with the surveillance that they were listening to. And also, you know who else was involved that Corsi broke out in this, and he's got all the information there, is Tom Perez. And Tom Perez is a lawyer with La Raza. He was an activist. La Raza is essentially, you know, it's supposed to be like the NACP for the NCAAP. I can't even say the acronym right, for the African Americans, or the CAR for the Arabics, the Muslims. But they're a lot like CAR in terms of they're very discriminatory. There's a lot of discrimination. If you're not Mexican, they really don't like you with La Raza. Do Google it, look it up. I can tell you this. And I say they're a lot like CAR in terms of they're essentially the same way. Difference is CAR has connections to Muslim Brotherhood and other stuff that I've written an article on before, and they're far worse. But the timeline alleges that NSA electronic surveillance of this, like Judge Murray Snow, was going on in 2008, 2009. They tapped a conversation between the DOJ and this Judge Snow in 2009. That's the same day Snow came out and said that she made some prejudicial comments about Apollo in public. And basically, folks, and I encourage you to go to the Uncensored Report to look that up. Basically, what it's come out is that the government is using vast tools at their disposal to go after individuals that are fighting or their narrative, that are preventing their narrative from moving forward. Apollo, as many of you know, the sheriff was hated by Obama. He was one of the lead people out there with the whole birth certificate thing. He was one of the lead people out there against immigration, very vocal, very outspoken. And he was running counter to the narrative that Obama wanted to put out there. So they use surveillance and every other tool out there. And even if you are not guilty of doing anything, there's so many tools in their pocket that they can make you guilty. And that's scary. That's an America you and I do not and should not want to live in. I don't care if it's Bush doing it. I don't care if it's Trump doing it. I don't care if it's Obama doing it. Okay? I tell you what, I'd rather be unsafe than lose all my constitutional rights that were afforded to me. And you should too. What say you? This has been Francesco Abbruzzino with the Uncensored Report.